Great. Welcome everyone to the Oregon PERS webinar, Financial Freedom Wealth Management Group. Give it just about a minute and get started here.
Yes.
Great. Just give it a couple more minutes. My name's Jason Harris, and I'll introduce myself soon. And Edgar is also joined in with us. Edgar, where are you tuning in from?
I am coming live from our Salem, Oregon office. So happy to be here today.
Nice.
Yes.
And I'm live from our Corvallis office. So we're about, what, 45 minutes away?
Yeah, just a quick drive.
Great. Okay, we'll give just about another minute and get started.
Perfect. I'm excited. This is going to be a fun time.
Yes. Can't wait for the statistics on PERS that we get to share. This will be good.
Yes. And then for those of you who are with us already live, we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So looking forward to that as well.
Yes, and it's pretty easy to submit those. There's a Q&A button that should be at the bottom of your screen where you can click that and submit a question anytime. So even if you have some now, feel free to put those in there. Okay, well, let's get things rolling. So again, welcome to our Oregon PERS webinar. So this is Financial Freedom Wealth Management Group, and I'll give you some more details on who we are in a moment, but we're going to cover a lot of information about Oregon PERS. And we do say Oregon PERS because there are other PERS entities in different states. And we do actually have expertise in a lot of those other ones, or we can at least find out for you. But Oregon PERS is the one that we're going to cover today. And we've done many of our clients' paperwork for PERS. So we're well versed in it. I'm joined by Edgar, one of our wealth advisors as well. And we're just going to dive into a lot of different topics with PERS. And so you'll learn some strategies, some things that will help you. There's been recent legislation that will cover that kind of changes how PERS operates. And of course, it's constantly changing. So this is meant to be a more high level view. We'll dive a little bit into the weeds, but we're gonna keep it fairly high level because we want you to know the basics so that you can be educated. And then if you need additional assistance, we are here for you as well. So yeah, again, as Edgar had stated, feel free to ask questions as we go, and we'll cover those as well. Okay, so first up, we do have, in addition to a number of our clients, we are joined by other friends and guests among us that we'd like to at least introduce who we are. So Financial Freedom Wealth Management Group, that's what FFWMG stands for. We were founded 21 years ago. So we like to say at the turn of the century. Sounds really, really cool. But we are a comprehensive wealth management firm. So we are committed to our clients' long-term success. And I'll go over some of those pieces here in a moment. But yeah, we do it all. So it's not just a investment place, but we're looking out for your overall financial health and well-being. Who do we serve? A lot of people that are retired, and you'll see from some of the PERS information, even people in retirement need some financial assistance and ways to better themselves that way. We're here for you for that. Also, business owners is another key area that we serve, and people in transition. did you know that retiring from PERS is a transition? It really is. So we're glad to help you on that journey as well. And maybe there might be some colleagues of yours that you want to share this replay with when you get it. Feel free to, because they could use this information as well. So a little bit more about who we are. You can see our core values, which really guide all that we do, our focus, and then our commitment. This is the core of who we are, which is to care deeply about you and your financial life. And the reason we're doing this Oregon PERS webinar is because we care about PERS because we care about you. So we have learned how PERS operates to make sure we're serving you the best way that we can and to show that care. Okay, there are many services that we have. Each of these boxes represents a whole category of services that we offer to you. We'll probably focus mostly on the retirement income and distribution planning, which is what this Oregon PERS is all about. Some tax reduction planning will be covered here, family wealth and legacy planning. There's some of that you'll experience. And of course, we're here for the educational events is part of what we're doing here, is really meant to educate you. But we cover so much ground in terms of our services. So if there's something in here that you're seeing that you'd like to learn more about, just take a note of that and we can help you and get you to the right advisor to get that taken care of for you. And here's our beautiful team. There are actually 15 of us. I know if you're counting boxes, there's two that look like blank boxes, but those are actually filled in. So we just hired 2 new team members they started this past week. So we're glad to have them on board so we could fill in all of our squares there. But we have 7 wealth advisors and 8 support staff to take care of you. So we're delighted to be able to serve you in that way. Okay, and here is one of them, finally getting to introduce you, Edgar. So Edgar is one of our wealth advisors, and he joined our team a little over 3 years ago. Graduated from a great university, Oregon State University. We happen to share that in common. And he graduated only a few years ahead of me, or after me. I was ahead of you. But Edgar, you graduated with honors from OSU, which is great. And I know you enjoy all things sports. That's pretty big. And you enjoy hiking. And one of my favorites is you have a cat. I used to have cats. So that's pretty cool. Also, Edgar is bilingual. So if you've got Spanish speaking or people that prefer speaking Spanish, Edgar can help you with the investments, which there's not a lot of advisors out there that can do that. So Edgar's well versed in the Spanish side of things. As an, I'm going to try to say it right, okay? Asesor financiero.
That was pretty spot on. Muy bien, muy bien.
Gracias. Edgar, over to you.
Yes, and then I am very fortunate to be here with Jason Harris. He's our Vice President and Chief Operating Officer here at Financial Freedom. You did go to an amazing university, as we mentioned, Oregon State. And then Jason actually also has his MBA in finance from Walden University as well. So 2 great universities, and I'm happy to be here today with you, Jason.
Thank you.
All righty, so today's topic, we're gonna go over Oregon PERS. And as we get started, the first question that comes to mind is, what is PERS? So let's go into that a little bit. Oregon, PERS means Oregon's Public Employees Retirement System. And essentially what it is, it's a statewide retirement plan for teachers, state workers, employees of cities, counties, and even special districts here in Oregon, as well as community colleges and public universities. So a lot of individuals are part of the PERS system. And as we can see here on the slide, there are 175,997 current PERS covered employees. And you can see the breakdown there by sector. And then on the right side of the screen, you can see kind of where everyone is. Retirees and individuals who are former employees but not yet retired make up just a little bit of half of that pie. The rest of that is current employees, so people actually in the workforce right now, continuing with their careers. So in total, there's about 367,853 total PERS recipients. Um, and this PERS system is really cool here in Oregon. So it used to just be a pension. And as we can see here, we have 3 different tiers. But since 2003, it's actually included both a pension and a 401k style retirement savings plan. So Oregon PERS is 2 separate retirement plans within one retirement system. So we have 3 different levels or tiers of PERS that you can fall into depending on when you were hired. So tier 1, hired before 1996. Tier 2 is those individuals hired from 1996 through August 28th of 2003. And OPSERP, which is the newest one, is for anyone hired after August 28th, 2003. All 3 of these tiers are fully funded by the public employers, which is actually kind of unusual in the public service sector. No employee contributions go into the pension plan. Your employers are actually taking care of that for you. There is an additional savings plan, as a lot of you may know it as IAP, or Individual Account Program. And this applies to anyone in the PERS system, regardless of when you entered employment. 6% of your pay goes into this IAP, and it's contributed directly from the employee or picked up by your employer in lieu of payment. But as Jason mentioned earlier, there's some legislative changes that have taken place. So IAP is a little bit different now than it has been before. So we're going to go into those details shortly. But the big question people have is, when can I retire from PERS? So it all depends on what tier you fall into. So this first slide here is tier 1 and tier 2. And I want to do a little bit of a case study here with all of you. So let's take the example of someone who is 56 years old. They have less than 30 years of service. When can they retire? So if you are tier 1, given those circumstances and this chart, you are not eligible for full benefits, but you are eligible for reduced benefits. If you're tier 2, given those same circumstances, 56, less than 3 years, 30 years of service, you are not eligible for full benefits either under tier 2, but you can take a reduced benefit and retire early if that's something that you'd like to do. But let's say the person is 56 and has 30 or more years of service. They can retire from tier 1 or tier 2 and get full benefits. And that is actually one of the amazing things about tier 1 and tier 2. Regardless of your age, as long as you have 30 years of service, you qualify for full benefits. Otherwise, you kind of have to look at this graph and see where you fall depending on your service time and age and classification. One thing to note, police and fire have a different set of rules, and so you can see those listed as here as well. But if you have 30 years of service, you can retire from tier 1 or tier 2 with full benefits, regardless of your age. So that's one nice thing. Now let's take a look at OPSERP, the newest one. They kind of simplify things here. So you can retire with full benefits if you're a general service employee at age 65. If you're police and fire, you can retire at age 60. Now, let's say you're none of those, but you still want to retire a little bit early. Well, if you're general service, you can retire at age 58 as long as you have 30 years of PERS service and get your full benefit. Police and fire, you can do it at age 53 with at least 25 years of service. So if you're not 65 or 60, you can still retire with full benefits earlier as long as you have the appropriate service time. But the good news is this, there is also reduced benefits for those OPSERP individuals as well. So general service, if you're 55, you can retire with reduced benefits as long as you fulfill the vesting requirements, which is about 5 years. You need to work for at least 5 years. 911 operators, they can retire at any age with reduced benefits as long as they work for 25 years. And then police and fire, you can start taking a reduced benefit between age 50 through 55 if you have less than 25 years of service. So there's a lot of different variables coming into play with a lot of these different tiers. The important thing is we take into consideration your situation and make sure we get it right for you. So this is what we specialize in and we do on very regular occurrence here at the company. So that's a quick overview of retirement eligibility depending on where you fall in your tiers.
That's great, Edgar. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is quite confusing because, like you said, there's really 3 different programs all in one, and that doesn't include the IEP that we'll get to in a moment.
Right.
So we're going to kind of flip back and forth between tier 1, tier 2, which are kind of the same category. The calculations are much different between the two, but the pension works essentially the same. And then we'll flip to this OPSERP, which you may have heard as tier 3. It's technically not tier 3, but it's called OPSERP. And so you'll hear us go between those. So as you're listening, kind of tune in for which one you are. And then as you're looking at this eligibility, that'll help place you where you should be. Okay, so let's go back to tier 1 and tier 2 and talk a little bit about this pension and how it is calculated. So you can see there's 4 different factors that weigh into this. So how old you are, your average salary, your credible years of service, so how long you've worked, and then your account balance, which Edgar will show you later how to find on your statement. It's also on the website. Then there are 2 different calculations that could be used. It's either the full formula program or the money match. And money match tends to be a little bit higher, but they're going to give you the higher of either, and they're going to run the calculations for you when you get to that point where you are running those estimates. But yeah, it's going to be the higher of either of these 2. And just as an example there, you can see for the full formula, you can easily calculate, okay, well, what could I be earning? So you take your final average salary for the last 3 years, divide by 36 months, and that's 3861 using this example, times it by your 30 years of service, times it by 0.0167. So that's 1.67%. And this is your estimated monthly benefit of almost $2,000 a month. So pretty easy to calculate, but you'll want to run the calculators online to get a closer estimate of what that will be, but that'll at least give you a rough estimate. And then OPSERP works a little bit differently once again. So this big red X on the left side there, that shows you how tier 1 and tier 2 work in conjunction with all this, but that's done away with if you're on the OPSERP plan, where, as Edgar was saying, the employer has put contributions into the PERS system for you, and that generates your retirement pension benefits. And then again, this is totally separate from the right side of your screen there, where you've got IAP, which is a whole separate thing, which I promise you we will talk about today. But it's a totally separate funds that don't deal anything with your pension. So for OPSERP, how is it calculated? Again, slightly simpler. So as you can see, as things have progressed, they've gotten away from some of the guaranteed big promises, and now they're making it nice and simple for you. So the factors are your credible service time, so number of years you've been working, and then your highest, the average of your highest 3 consecutive years, or your final 36 months, which is 3 years of service. And the calculation is simple. So you can do this anytime and you'll know your pension pretty close. It's your number of years. So if we took the same example, 30 years times your average annual salary, let's say it was $38.61 a month, times 1.5%, which is 0.015. Look at that. So you got a monthly benefit of $17.37. And notice this one is about $200 per month less than the one we did for tier 1 and tier 2. So you can kind of see why it's, you know, it's great to have the pension, but maybe not as great as if you got into the system a little bit earlier. Okay, so those are how the pensions work. And then we'll discuss the options for taking the pension in a little bit. But first, we want to cover IAP. And actually, let's see, did any of these, I see a few questions coming in. I want to make sure. Let's answer this one. Is the final average service truly your last 3 years of service, or is it your highest 3 years? Depends on which one. So for OPSERV, it is your highest 3 consecutive years. So that could be, I mean, it usually is your last 3, but they will go back and look at 3 consecutive years for your highest, is what we've been told. So I'm assuming you're talking about OPSERV.
It's actually tier 2. If it's someone who's tier 2. Oh, I see what you mean. Never mind, Jason. You're right.
All right. Okay. If there's another one that we need to answer as we go.
Yeah, there's one that I want to touch up on here. So for someone who worked as a PERS tier 2 employee from years 2000 to 2004, about 3.5 years is the question here, but has not worked since then, what is the vesting requirement? The person is 60 now. Can that person get IAP and pension benefits? So
I think we probably want to cover that when we go through, because we still haven't talked about IAP yet.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so for, it looks like tier 2, they're asking about years of service. No, it's your final average. So let me go back to that slide real quick.
Okay.
It's your final average salary for tier 1 and tier 2. It's not your highest 3 consecutive years. So that is the difference between tier 1 and 2 versus OPSERV. Okay, it's your final average salary. So make a lot before you head out.
Exactly.
All right, so let's do IAP, and we will get back to answer all those questions. Okay. IAP started in 2004, and again, it's a separate account, like a 401k or 403b. The dollars are actually yours as they go into that account. So again, not part of your pension program. 6% of your salary goes into this account. It used to be where the employer would pay all of that. And sometimes that's the case, but sometimes you're paying it and you'll see it on your pay stub. So you can look and see who's actually paying the bill for this. But yeah, 6% of your salary, one way or another, is going into your IAP account. Now you see this beautiful arrow that got chopped off a little bit. This is new legislation that happened in July of last year called Senate Bill 1049. And it was created to stabilize your pension. And so 2.5% of tier 1 and tier 2 of that 6%, 2.5 is going into this employee pension stability account. And you'll see it on your statement. Edgar will show you how to look at that. So in other words, 3.5 will go to you, and then 2.5 will go to the special account. The intent is to help cover your pension benefits when you retire. So I know it doesn't feel good, but it's what Congress or our state senators had to do to stabilize the program. And this only happens when the program is funded, is 90% funded. So basically, if the PERS program is not fully or 90% funded, fully funded will obviously be 100%, then this EPSA account is turned on and active, which it currently is active. And as of December of 2019, it was only about 79% funded. So because of that, this EPSA will be in place to stabilize the pensions. And as you can see, tier 3, which is also OPSERV, you're not putting in quite as much to this stability fund, mostly because it pretty much stabilizes itself. So only 0.75% will go into this EPSA account. Okay, and it's also only triggered when your gross income, gross monthly for the whole month is over $2,535. So if you made less than that in a given month, no money will go to EPSA. It will all go to your IAP account. So there's some tricky things in there, and that number is based on inflation. But yeah, it's just good to know that, okay, I may not get all of the IAP money that I thought was going into that account. So just be aware of that as you're planning and looking ahead. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about distributions of this IAP account. And this may help answer some of the questions, but if not, we'll go back and make sure it's covered. When you retire, you have to make an election of how you're going to distribute your IAP account. Again, this is that separate account that's acting more like a 401k or 403b. You have 3 different options. Sorry, I didn't number them, but they're the first 3 bullet points. You can do a lump sum, which means you take that full check. They're going to take out taxes at a rate of 20%, and it will be fully taxable to you that year. So be very careful with that option. I've seen some IAP accounts fairly large, and you probably don't want to add that to your taxable income this year in most cases. So talk with your advisor to make sure that's something you want to do. Second option is to do a lump sum rollover. So again, similar to a 401k, 403b, you could roll it. The check goes to you, but it's made out to the new custodian. And this is a non-taxable event. That's great because you may not want to incur the taxes this year. So that will be another option to roll it to essentially a traditional IRA. It's usually where people roll it, or perhaps if you're working somewhere else, that may be an option to roll it there as well. Third option, third and final option, again, you have to do something with it. You can do installments, either over 5 years, 10, 15, 20, or your projected lifetime. And the installments would come to you quarterly, monthly, or annually. And again, it will gain what it normally is in the account over that time. But you are locked into whatever decision you make once you take it. Now you can, of course, pull the whole money out or then roll it somewhere later. But once you elect, that is what you're stuck with. So choose this carefully. Another thing, so I keep mentioning, you have to do something with it. So you have 4 months after your retirement, 120 days to be specific, to make an election of what you're going to do. We usually recommend you just figure it out and make it right away with all of your other paperwork. Very easy to do. But this IAP account can also be inherited by a beneficiary of yours. So that becomes something to consider as well. But the whole point is just to look at your options, weigh them out, make sure you're making a good decision for you and for future generations that you may want to, if you're wanting to leave something behind or something like that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the different investments inside IAP. You have what are called target date funds inside of here, and it's managed by Voya. And these are based on when you are going to turn 65. So if we take Edgar's example of someone who's 56, that means they were born probably in 1965. So if we look across here, that will be the IAP 2030 target date fund. So if you do nothing, which is the default, you would be in the 2030 target date. And so that means you're planning to retire in about 9 years. And so your investments, they're assuming you're going to use a lot of these investments. So you're going to be a lot more conservative than someone who's in like a 2060. And actually, I believe they have 2065 now. A 2060 fund is going to be a lot more aggressive. So you're going to have a lot more stocks in there, a lot less bonds. They still keep a little bit to keep it a little conservative. But yeah, you're going to have at least 90% in stocks in the higher target date numbers. So if you don't have any other accounts that you're using, then probably what you're in is a good thing. But you do have a choice. Every September now, you can make a change to your IAP investments. So if you want to be more aggressive, maybe you have other investments elsewhere that you'll use first, or maybe you're going to work past 65, you can change your target date to a higher number and be a little bit more aggressive with it. Or if you want to be more conservative, thinking, okay, this might be the first money that I use, you can change it to maybe a 2020, which funny thing is that's already passed, but there's still an allocation you could do towards that. And retirement allocation fund is just going to be the most conservative. So you've got many different options there. And if you're working with us, if you want to bounce those ideas off of us, we can help you kind of navigate what might make the most sense for you. Okay, so Edgar, I think we need to learn how to read these statements.
Yeah, let's take a look at these statements here. So we're going to be going through an example of a tier 1 pension. So page 1 here, the top half here, it's general information. So you always want to make sure that it is accurate. Your date of birth, your first day of hire, membership date, and what you do for a living, your job classification. So you always want to make sure those are good. Now comes the fun part. Let's take a look at the numbers. So the bottom half of this page. So 2020 tier 1 pension information. This is, as it states, it's the pension. So as you can see here, you can be invested in 2 different pots, if you will. One on the left side is called the regular account. So that's an account where they give you a fixed rate of return. So if you see the highlighted box that says 2020 earnings rate, this example grew 7.2% in 2020. Now, fixed sounds good, but this actually used to be 8%. But then we had some legislative changes, and then it dropped down to 7.2% in this example. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decisions there. And then you have the variable account on the right side, and that's where you actually are investing some of that money and hopefully capturing some gains over the long term. So in this example, 11.77% return in 2020. But when you put that all together, the important thing is the 2020 tier balance. So that is the lump sum of everything combined that is used to calculate some of your pension. And then on the bottom left corner, you have your service credit. So if you're trying to figure out if you're going to be able to retire, you need X amount of years to be eligible for tier 1 or tier 2. That bottom left corner gives you that information. So now if we go to the bottom, because it's one long page actually, so we chopped it up into 2 different slides, but the bottom half of your really long page will have IAP. So you can see what target date fund you're in. If you need to make any changes, this will tell you where you're currently at. And it just gives you a breakdown of what's going on. So you have earnings rate, and then you have your balance at the bottom there. And then for those of you who make over that threshold and put money into the EPSA, that is located at the bottom of this as well. So everything is provided to you in one large piece of paper. There's a lot of information on there to digest, but the important thing is when you have these statements, it's best to just know what's going on, know what you're invested in, know how much of your funds are in the regular and variable account, and make sure your years of service are properly captured so that you can prepare to retire at the appropriate time. So um, we would be happy to go over this with um, any of you. It can be a lot of information, but the good news is we need to make sure it's right. And these statements give us a big snapshot.
That's great. Yes, now let's talk about our choices in the pension as we're taking retirement. So we'll start with tier 1 and tier 2, which I know it's 13 different options. And I promise not to go through all of these because we'd probably fall asleep. So the main ones to know, and by the way, you can do these calculations online. So the Oregon PERS website gives you the ability to run this whole report, and you can get an estimate with all these different options and dollar amounts listed. Those are monthly amounts of your pension that they're showing. So it's good to have that and compare it with, okay, well, what is option 1? What do I get with that? So yeah, option 1 is your highest benefit. You'll see the biggest number there. But once you die, you yourself that made the money all these years, your beneficiaries, or if you have a spouse or anyone you want to give it to after, they get nothing, 0. So your pension's totally gone after that. And you can do some variations of that. Option 2 is if you have a beneficiary that outlives you, they're going to get 100% of what you were getting. So same exact amount goes over to them. The other main one is option 3, which, and it's usually spouse, will get 50% of what you're getting. And the A's, then it's a, well, I won't go into all the details because then we will be here a long time. But the other options you can see with the half payout, that means you would get half of your normal pension plus you get your lump sum balance, which Edgar was talking about, the combined balance there on your tier 1 and tier 2. And then the very bottom, you see total lump sum. You would get your part plus, it's usually the same match number for your total lump sum. So yeah, if you come chat with us, we will compare those for you and kind of help you assess which may be the best option, because there's really a lot. And then if you have the purchase versus no purchase, you've got another 13 choices. So you're up to 26 choices you have to choose. And yeah, with the purchase versus no purchase, that's really buying back time for credits so that you get a higher monthly benefit. And when you run the calculators, it should show you some of that as well. Now, when you do the online calculators, you can do those at any time. But if you want an official estimate, you need to be within 2 years, so 24 months, of eligibility for retirement or your actual retirement date. So just think of that. And you can request an official estimate 2 times a year. And they'll run that and send it to you. I think it's still by mail. Maybe they're doing email now. I can't remember. But yeah, that would be how you grab those. Now, this was the tougher one. Let's go to OPSERP. Look at that, much simpler options. So single life is similar to option 1. You get everything, highest benefit, beneficiaries get nothing. You can do full survivorship or then the half survivorship. So much more simplified here. And sometimes if you don't have enough of a benefit banked into your pension for OPSERP, they're going to just cut you a check. So if it's going to total less than $5,000 over your estimated lifetime, you're going to get a lump sum check. It's kind of rare, but it's, you know, if you didn't do too much work in the system, that's how it'll work. Okay, so as you're looking at all these options, the pensions, they give you a great lifetime income, but the question is, if something happens to you, how do you want to provide for your beneficiaries? So you have to take that into consideration, because all these different options inside of PERS they're great for income, but they may not be great for leaving anything behind. So just make sure you're thinking through that, and we'll help you navigate all that of, okay, what sort of a legacy do you want to leave? Do you need the monthly income? Or is that an extra thing? Can you build the lump sum quicker than you could the monthly? So there's a bunch of different scenarios you have to think through to make sure you're covered and taken care of, and also who you leave behind, especially if it's a spouse. Want to make sure they're taken care of. So, okay, one more here about additional considerations. So we do want you to note that you could lose your benefit if you die before separating, or excuse me, after separating from service without officially retiring. That benefit actually goes away. So you do want to make sure you make some choices, you know, especially if there's a gap there where you can't retire, you know, can't officially retire. You want to make sure that's covered in terms of your planning. And then also we covered that one, but there is a cost of living increase that happens July 1st. So a lot of people choose to retire around July 1st so they can get that maximum cost of living increase, which tends to be between 1% and 2%. By the way, does that pace inflation? It does currently, but historically, inflation's around 3%, which looks like we're returning to. So you have to be careful with inflation. That may not give you everything you need for the cost of goods and services going up. So just be prepared for that. Okay, and then the last piece here that I'm going to cover is that it really helps to review all of your sources of income and compare it against your expenses. So we talked about PERS and IAP, but you may have other accounts like traditional and Roth IRAs, 403Bs, 457s, other annuities, your Social Security income, other cash. So all that works together as income sources for you. And you can look at what your expenses are going to be in retirement. And then these sorts of things will help you make some good decisions with PERS and IAP and just tie it all together. So I think with that, Edgar, what will be our next steps as we're heading down this retirement journey with PERS?
Yes. So the next step is if you or someone you know needs assistance with deciding what to do with their PERS, we invite you to contact us. So you can text PERS to 458-777-4458, and we will coordinate with you to schedule a complimentary consultation, and you will receive our monthly retirement income worksheet, which will allow you to take a look at your income and expenses and do that calculation that Jason just mentioned about figuring out what your expenses are compared to your income, which can be very helpful to have on hand for an appointment to decide what's best for you and your family regarding PERS. So feel free to reach out to us in this manner or call the office if you prefer and have a complimentary consultation with an advisor. And then as well, we work with LPL Financial. They are our broker dealer. So essentially this just means they help custody the assets and help take care of you in conjunction with your advisor. So that's who LPL Financial is. And then we have some fun disclosures. So while we get those up there, we can go ahead and start answering some of these questions.
Yes, and I think, Edgar, to your point about, you know, there's so many variables in this retirement planning that you don't want just a cookie cutter solution. You want something geared towards you. So definitely reach out to us if we can be of assistance to you. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, type your questions also in the Q&A, and we will get to all of these. So that's the official end of our webinar, but we will stay on to answer all these questions. Okay, first one here. Are there any health insurance options for someone in tier 2 with 21 years in PERS, but only 57? So health insurance is covered separately than the pension. Your employer may have some health insurance options for you, and I don't want to read too much into this. You may just be saying, can I get health insurance? Yes, you can. So no matter when you retire or stop working, you can go to healthcare.gov and get and you'll be able to sign up for some sort of health insurance coverage. So that's open to anyone, regardless of retirement status or work status. You do have to have a change in your life for that to happen. So that's doable. Okay, this was the one. Do you want to read that one, Edgar? Or?
Yeah, so for someone who worked as a PERS Tier 2 employee from 2000 to about 2004, 3.5 years, but not since then, what is the vesting requirement? The person is 60 now. Can that person get an IEP or pension benefits? So let's go over Tier 2 really quickly. So if you are Tier 2, you can retire with full benefits if you are age 60, and it doesn't matter how many years of service you have. So this individual technically qualifies for retirement under full benefits. But the thing is, they didn't work for very long. So in order to best answer this question, I would encourage you to get or have this person get a benefits statement from PERS, an official benefit statement, to see what they even qualify for with that limited service, and then make a decision from there. But on paper, to fully retire with full benefits from Tier 2, you have to be age 60, and it doesn't matter how many years of service you have. So
Right.
technically they do qualify for full benefits, but what those benefits are, an official estimate will give us more direction there.
Right, and you could even do a unofficial estimate on the PERS website and just plug in, because anyone who's been in PERS can log in, set up an account, log in, and get the basic details that you need. And of course, the IEP is, again, if there's anything in that account, that is your money. So
Yep.
yes, you'd have access to it. Okay. If you begin taking a reduced benefit, is it permanently locked in at that point, or is there any increase options as your age increases? So sorry, it is locked in.
Yeah,
if
you take your pension, the only thing is the cost of living adjustment that would help, but otherwise you are locked into your decision at that point.
Yeah. So sometimes it pays to wait, but again, any of our advisors here can compare, what those would be and your benefit as you kind of look long term, how that would shape out for you. I thought the EPSA was going into an account to stabilize pension payments for all PERS members, but then on the sample account you showed, it has the EPSA account amount tied to a specific member's EPSA. So is the EPSA an individual or a community account? Great question. It is sold as a personal account. So it is intended to stabilize your specific pension. That is how it is set up. Now, I don't know how they use those funds or when they would use them for your benefit, but it's to pay for not IEP, but for your pension. So I think as people retire with that account, there will be some more details on the specifics of how that works, but it's technically not a community account, although I can't tell you if they're using it for that purpose or not. But it is on your statement with the dollar amount. If I were you, I would presume you probably won't see those dollars, especially in your IEP account. You may see it in the pension somehow, would be my assessment. Edgar, do you have anything different?
No, that sounds pretty good to me. Just make sure that you keep track of it over the years, and then as time progresses, we'll see what those funds actually get used for.
Okay, we got a couple more here. I have left my PERS job, but have not retired, is there anything I can do besides getting another PERS job that could allow me to claim benefits for my beneficiaries in the event of my early death? So yes, you can get another PERS job. So I'm presuming this is for a younger person that hasn't retired. Edgar, I'm not sure on this one.
Yeah, I think this is case by case depending on your specific situation. For example, if you are older and qualify for early retirement at reduced benefits, you may not want to go back to a PERS job. You might be able to retire early and take advantage of some of those benefits, like taking a lump sum rollover of your IAP and or pension to then leave some money for legacy purposes. Now, that might not be the right answer for everybody. So to properly answer this question, I think an appointment would be best to go over your specific details, because there's a bunch of different ways this could play out. So I'd be happy to talk through that if necessary.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't want to sacrifice losing that pension
Right.
for short-term gain. So that's right on.
Correct.
All right, so let's see. How do you measure IAP returns? They do post that, so you'll see it in May when you get your statement, or you can log into your IAP account through the PERS website. You'll be able to see what your returns are each day if you want, but you'll get the summary at the end of the year. And of course, the more aggressive ones, the higher target date ones, you'll see some years of higher returns and some years of lower returns than some of the more conservative ones that might be a little more steady, if you will. But obviously the longer term, the more aggressive you are for the longer term money, then you should see overall on average longer term gains on there. But yeah, I'd log into the IAP website. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple more here. Great questions, by the way.
Yes.
Come in if you want. In terms of the PERS buyback amount, does that have to happen in a specific number of months' time before retirement? Or do you make the decision when you turn in your retirement paperwork? Edgar, do you?
From what I have experienced thus far, you usually make the decision when you do your paperwork. So you have an estimate of your benefits, and it'll show you with and without purchase what your benefits are. And at that point, you make a decision whether or not you want to buy back time. So over my career here thus far, it's always been done in conjunction with your retirement paperwork.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure it's due right there, or somewhere close to your retirement. So yeah. But we can always dive into specifics of how that works for you when we meet with you. Okay, what does the initial complimentary consultation entail? I'm expecting to retire in 1 to 2 years. Edgar, what all do you get?
So the initial consultation is all about you. So what we want to get out of this first appointment is to get to know you, your goals, and your financial life. And at that point, we start to build a relationship in order to be able to provide that tailored solution-oriented service for you. So meeting number one is all about you. We want to know what's going on and know what's your expectations are for your retirement, and that can include a conversation about PERS if you are a PERS individual or a PERS household. So really these initial consultations are all about you. So we'd be happy to have you come on for an appointment and start the discovery process.
Yeah, and to Edgar's point, it's learning who you are so that we can start crafting your retirement plan and helping you on your journey to retirement and in retirement. So much changes even within PERS, same with our financial lives and the industry, our families, everything's changing. So we get to help set you up for now and then keep that going. So yes, definitely sign up to chat with us. There's no pressure for anything. We just want to hear your scenario and see how we can help you.
Mhm.
Okay, we're logged in and it shows 0% for personal rate of return. No. Yeah, I'm not sure why it would be showing that. I don't know if you're new to PERS or if maybe the program may not be working properly. For sure, it should be on your statement, or you can see what it was before and then what it is now. You should be able to see that. But yeah, we'd be glad to look that over with you if you like. Just give us a call. And you're welcome. Okay, one person asked the question on the chat. What role does the Oregon Savings Growth Plan play into these? Great question. So it's also known as OSGP, Oregon Savings Growth Plan. That is what's called a 457 plan, which is deferred compensation. So think of it as kind of like your IAP, excuse me, except this one you can actually add your money from your paycheck into this. So all PERS eligible employees can put into the OSGP up to either 19,500 a year or I think 26,000 per year, which is totally separate from IAP and obviously totally separate from your pension. So you can put these two pieces together to help maximize your retirement. So think of it as like a 401k, if you're familiar with those, or a 403b. It's kind of a cousin to them. So you can actually do both at the same time. Some, especially school districts, will offer both. So you can do you've got PERS pension, you've got your IAP, you've got a 403b, and then OSGP as a 457 plan. So there's quite a bit you can do in a lot of these. But yeah, we can help you strategize and figure out which one makes the most sense as you're doing your planning as well. Great questions. Looks like we have covered it all. So thanks again for attending. And yeah, if we can help you at all, be glad to do that. We hope you all have a wonderful and amazing rest of your day.
Take care. Bye-bye.